So now Senator Josh Hawley wants to help fix the problem of monopoly internet companies by eroding Section 230 protections even further. CDA Section 230, which is part of the 1996 Telecom Act and the only part of the Communications Decency Act that survived the courts, says, no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. And this section helped make the internet great. Pretty much all of the websites, e-commerce sites, social media sites, video sites, and so on exist and thrive because of Section 230. As I've covered, government has been chipping away at this, particularly with the Backpage shutdown and the FOSTA-SESTA acts more than a year ago. Since then, we've been hearing more and more about what a terrible monopoly sites like Facebook and YouTube are. I don't think it's any coincidence that a lot of these issues have really come to a head since the U.S. government started eroding Section 230 protections. So let's see what Hawley has to say about this. Senator Hawley's legislation removes the immunity big tech companies receive under Section 230 unless they submit to an external audit that proves by clear and convincing evidence that their algorithms and content removal practices are politically neutral. So you have to prove ahead of time that you aren't doing anything wrong. Guilty until proven innocent. Senator Hawley's legislation does not apply to small and medium-sized tech companies. Well, until they grow into bigger companies. We'll talk later about what he actually means by a bigger company, but this is far from the only legislation that's attempted to exclude smaller businesses, and in each and every case, all they've done is inhibit smaller businesses, not giving them a chance to grow and become more successful, so they never really get a chance to compete with the bigger companies. It just makes the big companies more entrenched. With Section 230, tech companies get a sweetheart deal that no other industry enjoys. Complete exemption from traditional publisher liability in exchange for providing a forum free of political censorship. You liar! You liar! You liar! No other industry is held responsible for the actions of its users, and you know it! Is Toyota responsible for criminals who use their products as getaway cars? No. Is Budweiser responsible for drunk drivers? No. Are you responsible for a crime someone else commits on your property? No. Are you responsible for any illegal use someone else might make of your personal items? No. The only other time something like this has even been attempted is to try and hold gun manufacturers responsible for crimes other people commit with firearms. And they haven't had much luck, which is why we keep hearing all this crowing from the likes of Dianne Feinstein about it. Like all manufacturers, they can be held liable for producing a faulty product, but they cannot be held liable for wrongful use of their product by others. That is all that Section 230 does. It was included because Congress also included the Communications Decency Act, which was a horrible attack on free speech online by attempting to prohibit indecency and obscenity. It didn't last long in the courts, but at the time it passed, the chilling effects of this censorship were so obvious that a bipartisan force in both chambers of Congress got Section 230 added, unanimously. They knew that any regulation of speech on the internet would be dangerous without it. And yet Hawley says, unfortunately and unsurprisingly, big tech has failed to hold up its end of the bargain. What bargain? There was no bargain made. They were given the same protections that anyone in a free society should be given, that they cannot be held responsible for actions committed by others. There's a growing list of evidence that shows big tech companies making editorial decisions to censor viewpoints they disagree with. And what does that have to do with Section 230? Even worse, the entire process is shrouded in secrecy because these companies refuse to make their protocols public. This legislation simply states that if the tech giants want to keep their government-granted immunity, they must bring transparency and accountability to their editorial processes and prove that they don't discriminate. Get that? They have to prove that they don't do something. Guilty until proven innocent. He's going directly against the very concept of justice, and he doesn't even try to hide it. The Communications Decency Act protects companies from liability for illegal content posted by third parties. Congress passed this law in 1996 when the internet was in its infancy, and Congress was concerned that subjecting hosting platforms to the same civil liability as all other businesses would chill their growth. No, it was because they were passing a censorship law and members of Congress were trying to protect them from exactly this kind of regulation. But the internet has long passed its infancy. The largest and most powerful companies today are big tech companies, and they have enormous resources and advanced algorithms that they can use to help them moderate content. Those companies should not receive this government subsidy free of any responsibility. Subsidy? This isn't a subsidy. They aren't getting any money because of it. It just says, you know what? I'll read it again. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. That's all it says. That's it. Because these companies control the very information we receive, we must ensure that they moderate content in a politically neutral manner. Today's most powerful companies must not be allowed to interfere with the policy Congress established. Oh, you mean the policy they were trying to establish back when they were trying to censor the internet? The internet has flourished and become a platform for free speech because of Section 230. But what has been the effect of all this erosion? For just one example, look at how Craigslist ended up taking down its entire personal section for fear of liability. Many websites have shut off comment sections, or even shut down entirely for fear of liability resulting from the weakening of Section 230. What we need are stronger Section 230 protections. That is what will enable competing platforms to produce the disruptive technology, allowing people to engage online in a censorship-free environment. What Senator Hawley's bill does, removes automatic immunity under Section 230 from big tech companies, holding them responsible for things no other company would be held responsible for. Gives big tech companies the ability to earn immunity through external audits. Is it just me, or is this starting to sound a bit like the Stamp Act? Any documentation you have must be approved by the Crown. Make sure it has the King's stamp. Big tech companies would have to prove to the FTC by clear and convincing evidence that their algorithms and content removal practices are politically neutral. And how do they do that? Most of these are machine learning algorithms that defy such examination. We've already seen SJWs crying about how these algorithms are racist. You can take any anomaly and make it sound like it's not being politically neutral. You want to know about the issues with these machine learning algorithms? Look at them in a completely different context where censorship isn't an issue. Driverless cars. Security researchers have found that very slight alterations to road signs, even ones that aren't visible to humans, can completely change the way a computer sees the sign. Subtle shades on a stop sign can cause it to be mistaken for a speed limit sign. The right kind of noise added to a picture of a panda makes a computer see it as a gibbon. And the thing is, you can't really take a look inside these algorithms to see why. They're just too complex for that. You might as well try to look at the neurons in someone's brain to see why he prefers chocolate ice cream to vanilla. What Hawley is talking about simply will not work with modern machine learning algorithms. Algorithms that are becoming mandatory thanks to regulations in places without Section 230 like the European Union. The FTC could not certify big tech companies for immunity except by a supermajority vote. Wow. So not even a majority. You have to convince a supermajority of your innocence. A supermajority of unelected bureaucrats in an agency with a history of rampant corruption. What could possibly go wrong? The bill applies only to companies with more than 30 million active monthly users in the U.S., more than 300 million active monthly users worldwide, or who have more than $500 million in global annual revenue. In other words, if you come anywhere close to being able to compete with Facebook, you get to have 3 people in your organization and you can be classified as a big company under this criteria. Less than 10% of Americans posting, or just 4.2% of the world's population signed up, and you're considered big, and you have to submit to these audits to try and prove your innocence. All of this just solidifies my earlier conclusion that these politicians have not underwent some sort of catharsis that makes them care about free speech all of a sudden when they never have before. It's about having an excuse to regulate the internet. They've been trying to find an excuse to do so for 25 years. Section 230 has been one of the things standing in their way. I'm sorry, I know I generally don't get this riled up under this avatar, but when you have a U.S. Senator telling this kind of bald-faced lie in order to inhibit our freedom of speech and freedom of the press, how am I supposed to react? It's times like this that make me think there should be a nice, direct, old-fashioned punishment for lawmakers who blatantly violate their constitutional oaths, and right now, I'm in the mood to bring back pillorying. In fact, how about this? Every lawmaker who proposes a law that violates the Constitution shall be pilloried in his or her own district, live streamed on the internet, on a pillory built by local wood and metal workers. So maybe we'll even create a few jobs in the process. And maybe you could have it where people watching can donate $2 or something to have a rotten tomato thrown at them, and use that money to help pay down the national debt. Hey, I can dream, can't I? So don't let liars like Hawley stop competitors from rising up, like BitTubers.com, where creators like me are automatically monetized without ads, and so are you. There's no danger of censorship or demonetization, so come on over and help build the technology that will disrupt both the legacy media and the political regulators. Or, as always, you can support this channel at donate.bogosity.tv by donating with PayPal or crypto, or becoming a regular supporter at Patreon and Subscribestar, or even just watching these videos with BitTube's airtime extension or their new BitTube browser. As always, stay strong and be free.